And it's really an honor to interview a person who's leading a life of legacy, Mark Shenkman. When I wrote the book a number of years ago, I really understood that it's really one thing to teach people. Values are not taught, but they're caught. And focused on the kind of role models who really think not only about the here and now, but think about legacy, stay attuned to realizing their best selves every day. We oftentimes live in a life where we're moving so fast, we forget the gift of every day. And we also don't always appreciate that in every encounter, there's a possibility to transform a moment which is fleeting into a moment which is eternal. And I can't think of a better person who really embodies some of these strategies, which I think about in the book, than Mark Shenkman, who I've gotten to know over the past week. One of my congregants is a friend of his. And Mark, it's truly been a pleasure to get to know you virtually. I look forward to get to knowing you in person. And before I begin the questions, I just want to bless you and your family with continued health, joy, and really the continued inspiration. We believe there's no such thing as retirement. I always say that if Abraham lived in Florida, the Jews never would have been founded. We would have been sitting there. Moses started his career at 80 years old. The truth is, every day that we're in this world is a day to create impact. And you're doing it, and it's really a pleasure to interview you this evening. So, Mark, how are you feeling tonight? Let's start with that.
I feel fine. But I also want to thank you for that gracious introduction. And I'm also very honored to participate in the Solomon Society conversation with you this evening.
Our pleasure. So I'm going to ask some questions tonight, and I look forward to the conversation. First, how did you start your business?
So I realized early on that I was programmed to be on Wall Street and also to start my own firm. I say that because my father, who was an entrepreneur, my grandfather was an entrepreneur, and they gave me a subscription to the Wall Street Journal when I was 14. I was reading Barron's when I was 16. I was going to shareholder meetings in high school. And so I had this genuine interest in Wall Street. In fact, my senior thesis in high school, other students wrote about Shakespeare or Chaucer, and I wrote about the New York Stock Exchange. So in that way, I knew that that was my destiny. But I also knew I couldn't start my own firm without having a foundation, a basis in which to establish a Wall Street career. So I was very fortunate. I got a job at Fidelity. I realized after 16 years of working at Fidelity, Lehman Brothers, and First Investors, where I was the president and chief investment officer, that I had the foundation in which to grow and build a business.
I think it's very inspiring because it's not always easy to make a courageous choice, to make a decision that's not necessarily expedient, but actually is one that reflects your principles. So, I want to take out of that, I think for all of us, when we think about a life of legacy, it's being able to make decisions not based upon convenience, but conviction. We're faced with so many small choices that actually change the trajectory of our life. And that choice that you made really changed the trajectory of your life, and I think speaks volumes to your values and your vision. I want to really take this a little further because you had a vision, but I think you also understand the value in relationships. Success is also determined by the people we surround ourselves with. So when you are building a successful business, it obviously takes a strong team. What qualities do you look for in a potential hire?
So one of the hardest things is to interview people because they're always on guard. That's number one. And on Wall Street, there's always a lot of very smart people and ambitious people. So those two qualities are considered desirable on Wall Street. But what I'm looking for is very, very important. And that is somebody who is sincere, somebody who has common sense, and somebody who has overcome obstacles and are good communicators. Those are the qualities that I look for. And I interview everybody in my company, whether it's the receptionist or the chief financial officer. I believe I have to make sure that I keep the culture that I started 35 years ago continues through today.
I think, by the way, you hit on something which unfortunately there's not enough of, which is authenticity. One of the highest accolades in the Talmud is somebody whose inside is like their outside. That you know when you're speaking to them, it's the real deal, and they have that sincerity. And I think we see that in you. And like attracts like. I think we all are looking for people that embody that authenticity.
Yep.
Now, as far as you're being a role model and mentor, how do you see your role in that way for others?
So if you were to ask my team, they would say where I get the most enjoyment is being a teacher, being a coach, being an advisor. And throughout my career, I've always tried to educate, inform, and provide opportunities for people. And so whether I've written books in the field, lectured all over the world, and obviously been involved in many, many nonprofit institutions in my career, I've always felt that my role is teacher, mentor, coach. And if I can pass on some of my ideas and values to other people, I feel I'm doing a great service to society.
It's fascinating because you touched on one of the key aspects of leadership, again, from a biblical perspective. The mystics explain there are two ways to convey knowledge. One is to pour your knowledge into somebody else. The other is to light their fire. When you pour knowledge to somebody else, all you're doing is conveying information. But when you're coaching, you're mentoring, you're inspiring, that's really a way to multiply the impact that you can have. And I think that's something that we all aspire to do, whether it's in work, in home, which is really to ignite those around us to be inspired as well. That's the master teacher. So as they say in Hebrew, Yasher Koach, keep on mentoring. That is great. Now I want to think about for a moment another aspect of influence and legacy, which is something that I write about in the book called the Elijah moment. Now I'm going to take a step back for those. I'm not quizzing people who didn't read the book yet, but I want to talk about what this means and then ask you a question about it. So Elijah is somebody that appears in people's lives sometimes when we least expect it. And there was a story about a person who said to his teacher, I want to see Elijah the prophet. And the fellow said, go into the forest. You'll see a widow there with children. Bring her food for the Sabbath, and you'll see Elijah the prophet. He goes there Friday, Saturday, no Elijah the prophet. He comes back to the mentor on Sunday and says, you promised me I would see Elijah the prophet. So he says, go back again the next week with food. It's Friday afternoon. He's within earshot of the home, and he hears a child crying out to the mother and says, Mommy, where are we going to get food from for this Sabbath? And the mother turns to the child and says, just like Elijah came last week, Elijah is going to come again. The notion of being an Elijah means that we may not be able to change the world, but each and every one of us can change the world of one person. I'll be remiss if I didn't share one of the story that took place in Bishop's Corner right in front of the Big Y. I love this story because it's local, where somebody was getting out of a car and they told me it was one of the most inspiring moments. They saw a person getting out with orthopedic shoes, and they went over to that person and asked if they could tie their shoes in that moment. And they said to me that was one of the most inspiring moments of their life, because in that moment, they made a difference in that person's life. An Elijah moment is, as Mark Twain says, the two most important days are the days we're born and the day we understand why. And I want to ask you, Mark, about an Elijah moment in your life, where maybe you didn't expect this encounter would be something that might have actually had an eternal impact, but it's something that you realize that nothing in the world is random, and that in that fleeting moment, you made a real difference in somebody's life.
So I know the exact date. It was January 4th, January 4th, 1982. I was coming back from a business luncheon in Hanover Square in New York City, and I was in the crosswalk, and a truck hit me, and it was a hit and run situation, and I still recall the trauma of that event. And the fact is, I survived. I didn't have internal injuries, and what I realized that God was sending me a message that I should be closer to my family. I should appreciate each and every day. Each day is special, and each day you can never make up. In fact, I have a huge sign behind my desk that says every day is a gift, and every day you should be thankful, and every day you should make the most of that day. And one of the things I tell everyone when I do speak to them is there is one equalizer in the whole world, and that is everybody has the same 24 hours a day. And how you utilize those 24 hours each day can make a big difference in other people's lives and in your own life and in the community. So it was being struck by a van, and I survived, although my knee was banged up and I was badly bruised, but I did survive, and that day will always live with me.
So it's fascinating because obviously in that moment, you realized that you had a higher purpose, and you
Yes.
realized that maybe you needed to invest in those things that were truly eternal and important. And I think for many of us, we have crisis moments, but to your credit, you maintain the consistency and the same passion and appreciation on a daily basis. So I know when we were talking before, share some of the practices that you utilize, because I think there's things we all can do to make sure we really stay in touch with the value and gift of every day.
So I will say I'm a pretty regimented person, that I try to structure my day so I can get the maximum value out of the day. But it's very important to me that I write my accomplishments down each day. It's not a diary of so much of activities, but what did I accomplish today? And then I go back, what did I accomplish for the month? What did I accomplish for the quarter? What did I accomplish for the year? And at the end of the year, I take a list of the 10 most impactful activities I've done in my life for that year.
That's an amazing practice, because really what it does is it makes us realize, most times, again, we just move through time. There's a wonderful book called Time and the Art of Living that it reminds me of, by Robert Grudem. And he says that ask yourself right now what we're doing that's worthy of future memory. What are we doing right now that's worthy of future memory? And how am I going to look back at this moment a month from now, a year from now? And that's really what you're doing through this practice. You're saying, I don't want to let any day go by without doing something that I'm proud of, without doing something that's lifting the world around me. And that practice, it's actually called in Hebrew, cheshbon hanefesh. Everybody checks the market. I'm sure most of us check our stocks every day. We check the scale, whether we want to or not. But to lead a life of legacy means to do accounting every day of our accomplishments. And what can I do also? And this is really important too, not to say, oh, I wish I did this. The day is over. Start the new day fresh and really say, you know what? I'm not going to worry about yesterday. I'm not going to be anxious about tomorrow. I'm just going to make today the best day that I can. So that's really, I think, a wonderful way to lead a life, which you're doing as well. So again, God bless you. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Now, I know you're very philanthropic, and we're all very grateful for it so much, and God should continue to enable you to be that conduit. How do you determine, because I'm sure you get approached by a lot of different causes, how do you determine which causes to support? What criteria do you use?
Yes, I do get a lot of invitations to make contributions and donations. To me, what's important, and to my family, is, do we make a difference? Is my gift going to make a difference? To me, that's very, very important. It's not the amount, but does the gift make a difference? The second, I really believe you have to feel that it's a relationship and not a vendor relationship, that it's genuine, that they're not just looking at the size of my wallet, but do they really care about me? And do they care about the cause that they are soliciting for? And finally, I look for good governance and good management and good leadership, because you can give a lot of money, but if the leadership and the governance isn't sound, the money is not going to be well spent, and it's not going to meet the cause or the mission of the charity.
Well, I think, again, you're speaking also to the sense of a relationship when somebody truly believes in the cause. And also, again, it's not just I'm looking at you, for example, as somebody who can provide me money, but as a partner, as
Yes.
somebody actually that I care about. That's really the way relationships are built. One of my mentors, he passed away a number of years ago, Rabbi Stephen Dworkin, would say, he was a rabbinic mentor, but he said, people don't care how much you know, they want to know how much you care. And that message has always stuck with me, and I think for all of us, about what relationships are all about. The rest comes, but the relationships are most important. So that leads me to another question. When it comes to your employees, what's your philosophy on how you treat your employees, and how do you feel that has contributed to your success?
So first of all, we refer to them as team members because we
Love
feel
it.
it's a team. An employer-employee relationship is in my way of thinking, they're not part of a true organization. So everyone is known as a team member. That's number one. Number two, we really try to have, even within the business, all kinds of celebrations and traditions. We celebrate in our company everybody's birthday once a month. We have life events when one of the team members has a child, or if there's some other special event, we celebrate it. We make it like a family, not just a distant employer relationship. We also have all kinds of recognition awards. We try to make everyone feel that it's a family, and we're not in it just for the profits. We're in it because we really like to be with each other, and that we are collaborative, congenial, respectful, and professional.
It's mishpacha, basically, right?
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
And people are more inclined to believe in the cause and build relationships when they feel that you're treating them that way. So before we go to the Q&A, I'm going to ask you the big question, which is really the topic of my book. How do you want to be remembered? What do you want them to say? By the way, Mark, you got to tell me, what's your Hebrew name? That's really key. What's your Hebrew name? No pressure.
Menachem Shalom. Menachem Shalom.
Menachem Shalom, a comfort and peace. So, what do you want them to say about Mark Menachem Shalom Shenkman? How do you want to be remembered?
So that's a great question. Number one, as a family man, that my family was always my highest priority. With 3 sons, 3 daughter-in-laws, and 10 grandchildren. That's the pride and joy of my life. But second, that I was truly the pioneer in the leveraged finance market. I was one of the early disciples of this asset class, and today I never would have, in my wildest imagination, expected it to be a $5 trillion global marketplace. The next that I donated, a benefactor to many organizations, many times anonymous, but my charitable contributions. Also a great collector of history and an American patriot.
Wow.
Those are the core of my legacy.
Well, and I have to say, thank God, sometimes people will say something about how they want to be remembered at the end of their life, and they don't necessarily have the life body of work that truly is reflective of those values. Every single thing that you said, I think we all can say amen, 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 because that's the mark of a person who really is leading a life of legacy, that their values match their actions.